She had polished their silver for 10 years. But the moment she reached for a chair at the end of the dining table, a quiet, empty chair, someone's hand stopped hers. "Not here," the woman said, smiling like a lark. "The staff eats in the kitchen." People laughed as if they'd rehearsed it. The chandelier hummed. The crystal glasses performed their small applause whenever someone touched a stem. Anna tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and stepped back, the way one does when a wave arrives with more arrogance than water. She said only, "Of course." No one heard the gentleness strained thin. Anna had come to the Cartwright house the year the roof tiles were still new enough to declare victory. She was good at seeing what others forgot. A crooked frame, a curtain that breathed wrong. She carried silence like a useful tool and smiled in a way that made rooms less cruel. She did not belong to that table, not because she lacked a voice, but because the table had been taught not to listen. At the head sat Mrs. Margaret Cartwright, who, on walking sticks and willpower, had ruled the house with civilized grace and a ledger precise enough to shame the daylight. Her hair, once iron gray, now something softer, was pinned neatly. Her eyes carried the calm of a person who had survived storms and never once allowed thunder to decide her schedule. To Margaret's right sat her son, Victor, a handsome ledger of impatience. His wristwatch flashed like an argument. He wore dismissal-like cologne. He had a habit of glancing at Anna the way one looks at a clock that doesn't tell your time. "Mother," Victor said lightly as Anna placed a dish on the linen. "This could have been catered. She doesn't need to hover." "She isn't hovering," Margaret replied. "She's serving." "There's a moral difference." Victor shrugged. "Semantics." Across from him, Lydia, his wife, measured the table as if appraising a stage. She examined Anna's hands when they set down bread, and smiled the way mirrors sometimes lie. "Careful with the napkins," Lydia murmured. "They're monogrammed. They've always been ours." Anna inclined her head. "I know. You've been here long?" a cousin asked, a man with an accountant's beard and a poet's absence. 10 years, Anna said. 10 years, Victor echoed, tasting the number. "That's loyalty or routine." "Sometimes," Anna said. "They're the same." The cousin laughed, but Lydia's smile sharpened. 10 years, and yet I never remember your last name." "Morales," Anna said. "Of course," Lydia replied, as if she had predicted it and regretted being correct. The meal was a small celebration, Margaret's birthday, an age she had decided not to announce aloud. She ate little, listening more than speaking, the way people do when they're cataloging another season. She watched the way Lydia rearranged her fork to avoid touching the wooden edge where Anna's hand had been. She noticed Victor's impatience, coiling whenever conversation veered from the subject he favored most, the future of the estate. After the coffee, Lydia rose and glided toward the music room. "Play something," she called back to Anna, as if tossing a coin to a fountain. "Something cheerful. Our friends are arriving soon." Anna hesitated. She had learned Moon River as a child and a few quiet pieces after. The Cartwright piano, a walnut heirloom rescued from another century, had become her confessional after hours. She played to measure time between her life and the one she promised her son. But now, in the presence of lace and mockery, The keys seemed farther away. Victor leaned back in his chair. Yes, Anna, play. Remind us that even our instruments can be dusted. Someone snickered. Lydia added. Nothing too complicated, just something you can manage. Anna's cheeks warmed, but her voice stayed even. Mrs. Cartwright, Margaret, met her eyes and nodded. Play, if you'd like. Not for them, for me. So Anna played, not confidently, no. Confidence is a costume. She played like a person telling the truth. By the second phrase, a quiet fell that even admiration was careful not to disturb. When she finished, she didn't bow. She merely closed the piano lid like a parent closing a sleeping child's door. Lovely, Margaret said. Lydia clapped politely. Sweet, simple. Victor poured more wine. It's endearing how earnest she is. Anna returned to the kitchen and rinsed a glass. The crystal sang its small plea. In that sound was a shape of her life, how effort could be music. How fatigue could be invisible if you did it beautifully enough. Later, as coats arrived and compliments arrived louder, Anna moved through the party like the clean part of air. She carried trays. She removed empty plates before they could become evidence. She accepted instructions from people who did not know how to instruct gently. No, not there. Lower. That one. Not that. Yes, if you must. Each phrase a small subtraction. Near 9. She stepped onto the back terrace for a breath. The garden smelled like damp iron and peonies. The house pulsed behind her, the piano now loud with someone else's confidence. The laughter sharpened. By wine. She closed her eyes. Wind touched her face with more kindness than the evening had allowed. The door clicked. She turned. Victor. He held 2 empty glasses like trophies. Refill, of course, she said, reaching. He did not give them to her. He looked past her at the dark yard, then back, assessing a thought he was about to enjoy. Tell me, Anna, he said, tasting her name. Do you expect to be mentioned? In the will, he added, for sport. Anna tilted her head. Mentioned. He smiled without warmth. You know how these stories go. Devoted maid, grateful matriarch, a sentimental figure in the corner of a page, a brooch, perhaps, a sum tidy enough to flatter, not enough to trouble anyone with signatures. He handed her the glasses then, and his fingers did not quite avoid hers. Do not mistake ours for inheritance, he said softly. This is not a fairy tale. This is a family. Anna thought of all the coats she had lifted from shoulders that never learned the weight of rain. She thought of her son's textbooks, stacked like mountains. She thought of Margaret's hands, steady when they held teacups, steady when they held the truth. I expect nothing, she said evenly. I simply do my job. Exactly, he said, as if she had agreed to something binding. When the guests left, the house exhaled. Lydia removed her earrings with practiced victory. Well, she said, Anna survived the evening. I always do, Anna said. In the kitchen, Lydia said. Not unkindly, because unkindness had become her climate. The silver doesn't polish itself. When Anna returned to the dining room after midnight, she found Margaret still seated. The candles reduced to memory. You should rest, Anna said. I will, Margaret replied, when you do. They sat in the gentle wreckage of celebration. The house listened. The night outside eased itself against the windows. "Do you know," Margaret said after a while, "why I never told you what to call me? Not Mrs. Cartwright, not ma'am, not anything else. No, because names become instructions in houses like this. I didn't want to write your script for you. Anna, let the words land. Thank you." "Victor thinks the world performs for him," Margaret continued. "He has not learned that every stage is a borrowed room." She turned her head. "He asked you about the will." "He teased," Anna said. Margaret's eyes held a light of their own. "He often teases when he is afraid." "Afraid? Of what?" "Discovering that ownership is not the same as belonging." A week later, Margaret fell ill. The doctor came with a vocabulary that pretended not to be a wall. Anna listened to instructions, learned the way the oxygen machine sighed, mastered the choreography of pills, tea, gentle humor. Lydia watched like a person studying a foreign language and deciding not to learn it. Victor arrived with impatience and left with the same. One afternoon, as Anna adjusted a blanket, Victor entered with a folder. "It's simple," he said, placing papers at the bedside. "Names, dates, places. Mother, you're a practical woman. Let's be practical." Margaret looked from the folder to Anna. "Tea," she said softly. Victor smiled at Anna the way one smiles at inconvenience. "We're fine. I asked for tea," Margaret repeated. Anna moved toward the door. Victor's voice followed. "You can leave it on the hall table. We'll sign inside." Anna paused, turned. "Do you need me to call your mother's attorney?" Victor blinked, offended by the word "you're" in a sentence that belonged to him. "I am perfectly capable." Anna nodded and walked out. In the hall she stopped at the piano. Her fingertips brushed the wood. She let her breath find a count that felt like courage. When she returned with the tea, the folder was closed. "We'll do this another day," Margaret said. Victor's jaw worked at a sentence he did not dare to set free. "You're tired," he offered. "Of many things," Margaret replied. "Of signatures is not one." After he left, she opened the folder and slid out a pen, green ink. She wrote on a small card and handed it to Anna. "If they ask who you are, tell them the truth. You are the person who stayed. Keep that," she said. "Sometimes evidence needs to be small." Days grew shorter in the peculiar way time does when it learns the shape of an ending. Margaret slept more, spoke less, but when she looked at Anna, her gaze had the quiet of a harbor. One morning, she held Anna's hand and said, "They will ask you to step back. Do not stand where kindness stands." Margaret passed in her sleep. The room arranged the way she liked flowers, honest enough to be flowers. Curtains open just enough to let morning find its manners. The house hushed. Even glass understood a different way to shine. The funeral was well attended by people who pronounced admiration like an introduction. There were speeches about legacy and leadership, about donations and dinners, about winters braved and summers sponsored. No one spoke about the small postcards with green ink, the ones that told a woman who had controlled empires not to forget to laugh. No one mentioned the way she had begun to say thank you to the hydrangeas. After the burial, a date was set. Reading. of the last will and testament of Margaret Cartwright. Anna ironed her only black dress and wore the necklace her son had bought her with busboy wages. She arrived 10 minutes early and stood in the foyer, where she had learned the weight of every footstep. The portrait of Margaret's late husband watched with the stiff patience of oil. Victor entered with a lawyer the house already feared. Lydia floated in behind, wrapped in restraint and pearls. Two cousins, a niece who looked hopeful in a way. People do when they misunderstand hope. They took seats in the study. The lawyer opened a leather folder. The room arranged itself around a ritual. First came the bequests gifts, precise as Margaret's handwriting. Donations to the clinic that never turned anyone away. A scholarship for students who had the grades but not yet the language of confidence. A trust for the garden, so the hydrangeas could continue dressing the summers. The piano to a shy music. Teacher who had once played for Margaret without knowing. Then the lawyer paused, as if stepping onto a narrow bridge, in regard to the residents at 48 Hawthorne Lane. Victor smiled at something the world had already promised him, and its contents. Inclusive of maintenance funds, I leave the house to Miss Anna Morales, with the condition that it not be sold within 5 years. It is to be used, lived in, and kept in the spirit this home deserved. Silence performed its truest trick. It told the truth about everyone. Victor stood so quickly the chair protested. No, he said, as if the word could edit a document. This is theatrical. Lydia's hand found his sleeve. Victor, be quiet, he hissed, and the pearls decided to stop shining. He turned to Anna. You. He did not bother with her last name. You have done your job well. That is clear. But this home belongs to family. The lawyer interjected gently, Mr. Cartwright. If you'll family, Victor repeated, as if the word alone could perform. Custody. You cannot possibly believe. The lawyer lifted a second envelope. There is a recording, he said. Mrs. Cartwright anticipated questions. He pressed a button. The screen on the wall flickered. Margaret appeared in a blue sweater, seated in the garden. Her voice arrived in the room like someone opening a window. If you're watching this, she said, then I have succeeded at 2 things: leaving and telling the truth. She looked into the lens with kindness that did not apologize for being firm. Victor, you will think this is about punishment. It is not. You will think it's about gratitude. It partly is. Mostly it is about use. Houses are meant to be used in a particular way. They are meant to be lived in by people who listen to what runes ask for. She smiled. Small and real. Yes, Anna is the maid. She is also the person who learned the exact sound my breath made when I was not saying what I felt. She is the one who noticed when lilies arrived with price tags. She is the one who set down a cup with the respect due to a heartbeat. She stayed. She saw me. She inhaled. Victor, you often called attention respect. They are not the same. Attention is a room full of eyes. Respect is remembering to remove the tag before you hand someone flowers. She almost laughed. Anna, if you are watching, take care of the house. Don't turn the piano into a relic. Open the windows when it rains. Let the sound prove the roof still works. And please, do not sell the place until it has taught you what it is for. The screen went dark. Victor did not sit. This is sentimental theater, he said softly, the air around each word colder than the word itself. We will contest. You may attempt, the lawyer said. What Mrs. Cartwright's wishes are. Victor stared at Anna, and for the first time his certainty misfired. What did you say to her? Good morning, Anna replied, and sometimes nothing. She liked that. His mouth opened, then shut, like a door that had discovered hinges. Lydia recovered her composure. Anna, she said, choosing sweetness as a garment. Congratulations. You must be overwhelmed. I am, Anna said, because humility does not require denial. Then you won't object. Lydia continued carefully, to allowing us to sort through a few heirlooms, items of heritage. The lawyer cleared his throat. Mrs. Cartwright's. We'll address his heirlooms explicitly. They remain with the house unless already specified. Victor laughed once, without humor, so the maid becomes the gatekeeper. Anna met his eyes not to win a contest, but to decline one. The house is still your mother's before it is anyone else's, she said. I will keep it that way. He looked away first. That night, after signatures turned ceremony into fact, Anna walked through the rooms with the key the lawyer had pressed into her palm. The house felt different, not because of ownership, but because of assignment. She touched the banister. She opened the music room. She set a single lily in a glass stag removed and placed it by Margaret's favorite chair. In the morning, a knock. A woman stood on the porch holding a paper bag, and the courage it took to knock on a door like this. Forgive me, she said. I cleaned here years ago. Before you, I heard about Mrs. Cartwright. I brought scones. Her eyes filled. She used to leave me notes with green ink. Take a break before you forget you're human. Come in, Anna said. You're home. They sat in the kitchen and ate scones that tasted like memory while the house listened. Then, relaxed, Anna realized heritage could be redefined, not as items guarded, but as kindnesses repeated. She did not turn the home into a museum. She turned it into a place that remembered why houses exist. On Tuesdays, the library became a quiet room for women who needed an hour to breathe without permission. On Fridays, an old upright from a church found its way into the sunroom for children whose lessons were louder than their confidence. Anna started writing small cards in green ink postcards that said things like "You matter to the furniture too," and "Leave the price tag off your gifts," and "Staying is a kind of genius." Word traveled. People arrived the way rain arrives, first a rumor, then a season. They came with stories that fit inside teacups and stayed long enough to learn their names again. Victor drove by once, slowly, and did not park. The second time he did park, he stood on the porch like a man confronting a language he could almost speak. "My son," he said awkwardly, gesturing toward a teenager smoothing his hair in a car mirror. "He has a recital next week. The hall is intimidating. The piano here." He trailed off. Suddenly shy. "May we?" Anna stepped aside. "The house loves music," she said. The boy played Moon River the way beginners do, with hope that forgives mistakes. Notes floated up into the rafters and found places Margaret had left for them on purpose. Victor watched, and something in his face let go of a weapon it had been holding. Before they left, he touched the lily on the table, and when he lifted his hand, the tag lay there where Anna had placed it, cut clean. The string a small shrugged. He put it in his pocket, a man learning a new habit. That evening, Anna wrote a postcard and left it on the hall table for herself. "If they ask who you are, tell them the truth. You are the person who stayed, and now you are the keeper who opens doors." She did not need to rehearse gratitude to feel it. She watered the hydrangeas before the sun climbed high enough to scold. She opened windows when it rained. She played the piano badly on purpose, because imperfection can be a kind of reverence. When the light pooled in the foyer the way it always had, she understood what Margaret meant by use. The opposite of neglect is not possession. It is attention. On the first anniversary of Margaret's passing, the house hosted a small gathering. Not a gala, those are for people who need proof. A gathering, those are for people who already know. The shy music teacher came to see the piano again and touched it like a hand. The clinic nurse arrived with a laugh and a story about a patient who decided to live. The former cleaner brought more scones and a rumor that the garden had cured her of winter. Even Lydia sent a book with a note in a careful script for your library. "I'm learning." It was not an apology, exactly. It was a bridge, late that night, when the cups were dried and the porch light was still on in case someone was brave at midnight. Anna stood in the doorway of the music room. She pressed her palm to the piano's cool surface. "Thank you," she said to the house, to Margaret, to the version of herself who never stopped showing up even when a chair at the table was not for her. From the hall, a draft moved a postcard. It revealed another one beneath it, older. The green ink faded but stubborn. "Use this place for what it was meant to do. Teach people how to belong." Anna smiled. She switched off the lamp, leaving the porch light on. Someone would need it. That was the work now. Not proving, not owning, keeping the clean, steady work of turning a house into a story you could live inside without apology. And the next time someone reached for a chair at the end of a table, and a hand rose to stop them, Anna would be there with a chair. That did not require permission, because some houses remember who they are, because the maid stayed, because the will was not paper, it was a lesson, because respect, unlike attention, removes the price tag before offering flowers.